Oh no. Not at all. It's so weird that my own channel recommends my own stuff to me. That was violent sounding. Yeah. You hear that a little too much off from little Spud Boy over there. Well, they're being protective over those bones. Yeah. When there's so many there for them to be chewing on. Da-da-da-da-da. That's going. All right. That's going. Got the right page up. Just gonna wait a few minutes before we start. All right, there we are. Bring that back down. Okay, so here we are. This is the spoiler list as of today. We just got done refreshing it. So, oh, looks like we just got some more new stuff that just popped in. Okay, so this is the spoiler list over at mtga Goldfish. So I like using them because they usually have the most up-to-date pages. So we're going to, one by one, just kind of go through each one that's relevant. We're not really going to be spending too much time looking at like the commander specific ones, just the ones that will be relevant for standard. Okay, so first that we have here, this is Vanifar, the Evolved Enigma. It's 2 colors, a green and a blue. It's a legendary creature, elf, ooze wizard. So that's not really that surprising coming from Simic. Simic likes to test the limits of nature. So it's a 3/4. It says at the beginning of your combat on your turn, choose one. Cloak a card from your hand. Put a +1/+1 counter on each colorless creature you control. So I don't know what cloak is just yet. I'm going to assume that when you cloak something, you disguise it, meaning like you turn it into a disguised creature. Like, and those are 2/2 with ward to blank creatures, kind of like morph, but with an upgrade. So at the beginning of your combat in your turn, you either cloak something or you give colorless creatures +1/+1. Not too bad. I think we'll have to take a little bit more of a closer look at some of the other cards coming through before we make a judgment call on this. But in a vacuum, could be decent. I could definitely see someone trying to build around that in Commander. So let's move on. Next is Private Eye. Private Eye is a 3/3 homunculus detective for a colorless, a white, and a blue. This says other detectives you control get +1/+1. So we have a detective lord. So I'm going to assume there's going to be a lot of detectives in this set since it's a murder mystery. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, target detective can't be blocked this turn. Okay, that's actually pretty decent. At uncommon, a 3/3 that gives other detectives +1/+1 at only 3 mana. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, target detective can't be blocked this turn, and it can target itself with that ability. So that's actually really interesting. Pretty decent for only 3 mana. But again, we got to see the rest of the set. You want to know exactly how many detectives are going to be in this set to give that +1/+1 to. Gearbane Orangutan. I like the alliteration. So this is a 2/2 with a reach for 2 colors and a red. When Gearbane Orangutan enters the battlefield, choose one. Destroy up to 1 target artifact, or sacrifice an artifact. If you do, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Gearbane Orangutan. So right away, that is just a straight up power crept Uktabi Orangutan. If you don't remember Uktabi Orangutan, it was a 2 colors and a green ape that literally all it did was it would destroy an artifact when it came into play. And it was also a 2/2. So this also having reach and giving the option to destroy an artifact or sacrifice one of your own to make it come in as a 4/4, that's kind of bonkers. I can see this being really good in a token deck. A deck that creates like a bunch of treasure tokens, blood tokens, that kind of thing. I mean, paying 3 mana and sacrificing an artifact for a 4/4 reach, pretty good. And also you can use it on the offensive to just destroy one of your opponent's toys. Pretty good. I like it a lot. Let's move on. So next we have the Unyielding Gatekeeper. So immediately what grabs my attention on Unyielding Gatekeeper is the art. The art is absolutely stunning. I really like the visual of a creature with an elephant's head wearing either like a crown or a tiara or whatever this is, and wearing the flowing robes of like the Selesnya in the Selesnya colors. I like that a lot. That the art alone on that looks really nice. Hello, BA. I'm doing well. How are you doing tonight? Today we are just taking a quick look through the new spoilers for the new set. We're not going at any kind of breakneck pace though. We're just taking it slow and analyzing each card as we come to them. I've not seen any of these cards yet, so this is all just blind reaction for me. So that's what we're doing. So the Unyielding Gatekeeper, it's 1 and a white for a 3/2, and it has a disguise cost of 1 and a white. So from what I understand of this is you can play this face down as a disguised card, it being a 2/2 with ward 2, and you could pay the disguise cost, in this case it being 1 colorless and a white, to flip it face up, and it becomes the 3/2 Unyielding Gatekeeper. It says, when Unyielding Gatekeeper is turned face up, exile another target non-land permanent. If you controlled it, return it to the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, its controller creates a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. So you can use it on your own creatures to effectively blink something, or use it as a polymorph effect onto your opponent. Get rid of their big nasty creature and just replace it with a 2/2. I like that a lot. That's actually pretty decent. And for only 2 mana, or 3 mana if you play it as a disguised creature, that's really cool. I like that a lot. Great art, decent card. I think that might actually see some standard play. Alright, let's take a look at what's next. So next we have Intrude on the Mind. This is... You doing okay over there, bud? I thought I heard you say uh-oh. Do you need some assistance? Okay. Alright, anyways. So, this card's called Intrude on the Mind. It's 3 colorless and 2 blue. It's an instant. And it says, reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles. Put that pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Create a 0/0 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Then put a +1/+1 counter on it for each card put into your graveyard this way. Oh, that's actually a pretty interesting twist on Gifts Ungiven. Was it Gifts Ungiven? I think it was Gifts Ungiven. Yeah, it was an old blue card that would do something similar to this, but instead of just throwing the cards away, you get a Thopter. So you look at the top 5 cards in your library. They get separated into 2 piles. A pile of 2 and a pile of 3. Your opponent will let's say for example, you choose the pile of 2 and the 3 other cards go into the graveyard. You now get 2 extra cards into your hand plus a 3/3 Thopter. That's very interesting. Let me reread this. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. Okay, so everyone gets to see the top 5 cards, and you get to choose how they're separated, but your opponent chooses one of those piles, and you put the pile that you chose into your hand, and everything else goes into the graveyard. Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. You have a little bit of control into how this stuff goes into your hand. Very, very interesting. I like that. I will probably end up using that. That is the card that is right up my alley. Okay. Next up, we have a creature called Delne, Streetwise Lookout. 2/2 for 2 and a white. And it says, creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. If an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Interesting. An ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers. Okay. Alright, so it's kind of like a Wandering Throne, but for very specific creatures. And creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. So that makes it so itself can't be blocked by big creatures. Interesting. I don't know how good that's going to be just yet. It gives like some kind of like pseudo evasion. And if an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Very interesting. I think that's going to be a little busted with very specific creatures. Like, for example, let's say, for example, you're playing this in black-white, and you're playing the black bat that eats a card from your opponent. You can use that bat to eat 2 cards from your opponent because it has a power of 2 or less. Also, Ravenous Rats style cards make your opponent discard 2 cards. Or, in white still, you have the Enchantment Dog that draws a card when it comes into play. That's 2 or less also. It doesn't directly counter the bat. What happens is Ozzy's going to swoop in and kill the bat. It'll just bite its head right off. And then you get your cards back, which is great. Okay, let's see what's next. So next we have Magnetic Snuffler. That's just weird looking. It looks like some kind of like Griffin Armadillo construct. Or Anteater, actually. Okay, so this is 5 colorless, 4/4. When Magnetic Snuffler enters the battlefield, return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to Magnetic Snuffler. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Magnetic Snuffler. Okay, so it'll work alongside tokens that you'd want to sacrifice anyways, like blood tokens, treasure tokens, clue tokens. So I can see this being pretty decent in draft. As far as standard or some kind of equipment deck, this is going to be way too slow. You're not going to want to be playing this. But draft, it could be a pretty good brawler. All right, let's see what's up. Undercover Crocodelph. What the hell kind of name is that? Is a undercover elf crocodile detective. All right. 5/5. Whenever undercover Crocodelph deals combat damage to a player, investigate. Okay. And it has a disguise cost of 3 colorless and green blue, green blue. Okay. This is clearly a draft card. It's a hilarious draft card, but it's a draft card. Shady Informant. This is 3 colorless, a black, and a red for 4/2. When Shady Informant dies, it deals 2 damage to any target. Oh, okay. That's actually pretty decent. So you play that as a disguised creature and block with it or attack with it, and it would die from combat. You pay the disguise cost to flip it up, and it'll trade favorably with something because now it's a 4/2 instead of a 2/2, and it also deals 2 damage to your opponent or a creature they control or a planeswalker or a battle, something along those lines. Yeah, that's actually fairly decent, so long as you play it for its disguise cost and not for its full 5 mana cost. 5 mana is way too much for them. Okay. Next up we have the Fairy Snoop. So this is in blue-black, so this can fit into all your fairy decks. This is a 1/4 flying fairy detective for 1, a blue, and a black. And has a disguise cost of 1 and blue-black hybrid. When Fairy Snoop is turned face up, look at the top 2 cards of your library and put 1 into your hand and the other into your graveyard. It's okay. It's nothing to write home about. It's an okay effect. on a decently sized body for only 3 mana, being a 1/4. You're not going to win any games with that, but it could be a good supporting card. Undercity Eliminator. So this is a Gorgon Assassin for 3 colors and 2 black. It's a 3/3. When Undercity Eliminator enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice an artifact or creature. When you do, exile target creature and opponent controls. Oh, okay. That's actually not too bad. So, this reminds me of the green-black spider that does a very similar effect. Only it's not as good, because 1, it costs a whole 1 mana more, and 2, it doesn't gain you life when it dies. So, it's okay. I can see this being played in draft, but not in standard. Let's see what else we got here. So next is the Covert Ambusher. 3 colors and 2 green. For a 4/5. When Covert Ambusher enters the battlefield or is turned face up, target creature blocks this turn of Fable. Okay. You force a favorable block. Aside from that, it's nothing to write home about. Assemble the players. 1 colorless, 1 white. Enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You doing okay, bud? What are you doing? Alright, cool. You having fun? Yeah, you are. You don't know what fun is? Alright. Anyways. Assemble the players. 1 and a white. Enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. Once each turn, you may cast a creature spell with power 2 or less from the top of your library. That's actually really good. Well, first off, just being able to look at the top card of your library anytime is great for Scry. But that once each turn, you may cast a creature spell with power 2 or less from the top of your library. That's really, really strong. You can dig pretty deep into your deck if you you can dig pretty deep into your deck using something like that. That's really good. I like that a lot. Okay. Next up we have something called Buried in the Garden. This is really cool looking. Like that art is really, really nice. It's just that silhouette of what looks to be a dryad buried in moss. Okay, anyways. So this is 2 colors, a green, and a white. It is an enchantment aura. Enchant land. When Buried in the Garden enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent you don't control until Buried in the Garden leaves the battlefield. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of any color. Okay, that's fairly interesting. It's a little overcosted, though. It is mana ramp and it is control at the same time. But I think if you're playing an effect like this, you are literally just going to be playing Ossify instead. Because it's still in the same colors, because you do need white to cast this. But you also need twice as much mana to use it. So I don't foresee many decks needing this that wouldn't already just run Ossify. So you'll probably see this in draft, because it is removal. Steamcore Scholar. This is 2 and a blue for a 2/2. Is a weird detective. I like that creature type. Weird detective. This is pretty cool. Anyways, Flying and Vigilance. When Steamcore Scholar enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. Then discard 2 cards, unless you discard an instant card, a sorcery card, or a creature card with flying. Interesting. So it's very specific draw and discard. And let me see here. Was it power 2 or less, or... Yes, yeah. Assemble the players will work with Steamcore Scholar, as will Delnay the Streetwise Lookout. because they are worried about power 2 or less, not mana cost 2 or less. Okay, yeah, so that would actually work. So I'm going to assume the majority of detectives are going to be like 2 power. Here we have Ripper of Bloodlines, but it's in a foreign language. Let me see if there's a translation. I don't see one. That's fine. We can always come back to that later. All right, let's roll back down. Okay. So, Ripper of Bloodlines. Oh, it is right there. The dossier card made it look like a white card, so I didn't recognize this. Anyways, 3 and 3 black, so very expensive to cast. It's a 6/5 vampire assassin. That's flying. And ward to sacrifice a creature. That's a great ward cost. Whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. For that kind of effect, though, I think I would rather just play Archfiend of the Dross. Because Archfiend of the Dross will hit your opponent for every creature of theirs that dies. It is one-sided. Whereas this one has a little bit better of an effect, but it's more like a win more / stabilization effect. The Archfiend will deal 2 to the opponent whenever a creature that opponent controls dies. This guy triggers whenever one of your creatures dies or an opponent's creature dies. So this technically is better, but you are paying 2 more entire mana to make it happen. Because the other one is only 4 mana. This one is 6. So technically better if you build around it. Pyrotechnic Performer is a Vaishino Assassin. So it's 1 in red for a 3/2 with a disguise cost of only 1. That's pretty good. Whenever Pyrotechnic Performer or another creature you control is turned face up, that creature deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. Cool. So, yeah, that's actually pretty decent. I mean, even if you do it like just for the Pyrotechnic Performer and no other like morphed creatures, he's just dealing 3 to your opponent's face on his own. And if you do it with like someone that has like 4 or 5 power, like these ones that we saw earlier, like the Shady Informant, you flip Shady Informant up, it deals 4 damage to the opponent, and then an additional 2 if it dies in combat. All that little bit of damage can add up really fast. Not too bad. Okay, so here's something new. This is a new permanent type called a case. It basically operates kind of like a quest. So for 1 and a black, you get this enchantment. And it says, when this case enters the battlefield, create a 2/1 black skeleton creature token and suspect it. It has menace and can't block. So whenever a creature gets suspect, it has menace and cannot block. So that's like a blanket statement. To solve, you control no suspected skeletons. Okay, well that's an easy solve. So this comes in, you get a 2 black suspected skeleton. You find a way to sacrifice a skeleton. So like village rites, or if you're playing white black, you play this with Bart, the vampire from the previous set. It is a little sus, yeah. I saw on Twitter earlier, another Magic guy. He was saying that that we should just use sus as the term, like as a blanket statement instead of suspect. I have a feeling that's going to be a thing. What's sus, buddy? Oh, that's too bad, buddy. Oh, that's majorly sus. Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, So, to solve this, very easy. You sacrifice a skeleton. There are plenty of sacrifice outlets available. Just toss it somehow. And then, solved. 1 colorless, 1 black. Sacrifice this case. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand. Oh, it's a tutor. That's actually really good. Like, you jump through a hoop, and you get to tutor for only 2 mana. That's actually really, really good. I mean, technically you are still paying 4, but you're paying it in installments. Yeah, Sussy Tutor. You pay 2 up front. You get the 2/1. Maybe beat in for like a turn, or throw it away for like a village rights, or they throw it away for some kind of benefit. And then it's solved, and then you pay the other 2 on whenever other turn. Because the solved case can just sit on the table until you need to use it. But you can only activate it as a sorcery. So you're kind of inclined to activate it before your opponent finds a way to get rid of it. So if they have like a disenchant kind of thing, then that might screw you up a little bit. But yeah, pretty decent. I actually like that card a lot. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Ooh, okay, so we have Agris Kos, the Spirit of Justice. This is 2, a red, and a white for a 2/4 Spirit Detective. He has double strike and vigilance. Already sounds pretty cool. When Agris Kos, Spirit of Justice, enters the battlefield or attacks, choose up to 1 target creature. If it's suspected, exile it. Otherwise, suspect it. Okay. Whenever enters the battlefield or attacks. Okay, so you could play this in a deck that has many different ways to suspect creatures, and basically just play this to exile another card, which is not terrible. We've seen effects similar to that in just like destruction, like say the Ravenous Chupacabra or Necrotal does something similar to that. But this comes in with double strike and vigilance as well. Makes it a pretty decent card. Not too bad. I actually kind of like this. Yeah. We might be able to find some space for that in a deck. Probably not like a Boros aggressive deck, maybe like a more mid-range style deck. Okay, and here we have Alquist Proft. We've already seen this guy though. This guy was revealed a few weeks ago. So he's a 3/3 with vigilance for only 3 mana. Already pretty good. When Alquist Proft, Master Sleuth, enters the battlefield, investigate. And he has the ability of X, white, blue, blue, tap, and sacrifice a clue to draw X cards and gain X life. So he has a, what's the word? He has a Sphinx's Revelation reusable built in onto himself. And he has vigilance, so you can be aggressive with him, and then at the end of your opponent's turn, just tap out for a huge Sphinx's Revelation as many times as you have investigate tokens or clue tokens. Honestly, pretty decent. Even if you're just playing him as a vanilla 3/3 vigilance, it's not too bad at all. I can't wait for some good old Boros aggro with it. Yes, that is actually what I'm going to be building first when the set goes live. I'm chomping at the bit to play with Lightning Helix again. Aurelia's Vindicator. 2 and 2 white. 4/2, creature, angel, flying, lifelink, and ward 2. Already this has my attention. Disguise, X, 3, and white. When Aurelia's Vindicator is turned face up, exile up to X other target creatures from the battlefield and or creatures from graveyards. Okay. When Aurelia's Vindicator leaves the battlefield, return the exiled cards to their owner's hands. Oh, wow. Okay. This is actually really interesting. Okay, so exile up to X other target creatures from the battlefield and or creatures. Okay, that's stupid. I like that a lot. So you pay the cost, which is going to be hefty, and remove like 2, 3, 4 creatures from your opponent's battlefield. And then when this card goes away, those cards don't come back to the battlefield. They go to the opponent's hand, meaning the opponent would have to cast them all over again. So that's a huge tempo loss for them. Alternatively, you could exile the cards from your own graveyard and get those back to your hand. So this can be used in so many different modes. And also just the fact that you can flip it up to become a 4/2 flying lifelink ward too. That's really, really cool. I think that card's gonna be really good. Okay, moving on. Next is Atrata, Deadly Fugitive. For 1, a blue and a black, a vampire assassin. It's a 1/4, Death Touch. Face down creatures you control have 2 blue-black. Turn this creature face up. If you can't, exile it. Then you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Interesting. Why would you not be able to turn it face up? Whenever an assassin you control deals combat damage to an opponent, cloak the top card of that player's library. What does that even mean? Like, I think I understand what cloaking a creature in play means. It means you would turn it face down, give it a disguise. Oh, wait, I think I get it. Okay. A cloaked card on top of the library. If you draw that card, would that mean that you could then cast it as a disguised card, regardless of whether or not it has a disguise? I'm gonna need some more information on that card. But if it works like that, then that's kind of busted and would make sense at the first paragraph. Okay, moving on. Okay, so here we have our Planeswalker of the set. It is yet another Kaya, which I'm fine with. I mean, Kayas are almost always good. So for 2, a white and a black, you get a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. And she has a static ability here and says, whenever 1 or more creatures you control and or creature cards in your graveyard are put into exile, you may choose a creature card from among them. Until end of turn, target token you control becomes a copy of it, except it has flying. Oh, that's pretty good. You make copies of things that you exile. +2, surveil 2, then exile a card from a graveyard. That on its own is really good, especially when fighting reanimator decks. +1, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. So +1, make the token. +2, exile a card, make your token turn into a copy of the card that you exiled. Pretty good. And -2, exile target creature you control. For each other player, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls. Okay, so you can exile a creature you control, have your token become a copy of it so you don't really even lose anything, and then also remove something that your opponent has. Not too bad for only 4 mana. Now, is it going to see a whole lot of play, though? That's the question. Like, it's very, like, thematically very cool. I like that card a lot. But exactly how good is it going to be? Because, like, at 4 mana and in white, you're likely already just playing the Wandering Emperor. And if you're playing a Kaya, you want to be a little bit more in, like, a controlling deck type already. So I don't know if this is going to beat out an Emperor for its spot in the 4 mana spot of a deck. But hopefully I'm wrong, because that is a very cool concept for a Planeswalker. Moving on. Massacre Girl, the known killer. 2 colorless, 2 black, 4/4, human assassin. She has menace, which is cool. Creatures you control have wither. Oh, I haven't heard that in a while. They deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. That's really cool. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw. Oh. I like that. I like that a lot. That is going to turn into a lot of card draw in the right deck. Creatures you control have wither. They deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. So you can kind of play with this in a bit. Say for example, you swing in with a creature, and it would have normally just traded straight across. You can play with this a little bit by also playing other cards that give temporary -1/-1 or -2/-2 to a creature, and then cause the creature that it got into combat with to deal more -1/-1 counters to it, thusly putting the total power and toughness of the creature into the negatives and forcing card draw. That's very interesting. I like that a lot. I'm definitely gonna have to play around with that card. Black just keeps getting great cards. Rakdos, Patron of Chaos. We've seen this already, but we'll read it anyways. 6/6 Flying Trample for 6 mana. That's 4 colorless, 2 and a black and a red. Flying Trample. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-land, non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. So either your opponent throws away stuff, non-token stuff, and you draw cards. And it does not... Oh, it does say non-land. So it can't be a token, it can't be a land. So they're going to have to throw away enchantments, artifacts, battles if they have any, planeswalkers, creatures, any permanent that they might want to keep on the table is going to get thrown away at the end of turn, every turn. Otherwise, they give you card advantage, and lots of it. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like that a lot. Rakdos midrange. Okay, next up we have Tristani, 3 Whispers. So for a green, a white, and a hybrid green-white, you get a 4/4 Dryad. And it has 3 abilities. 1 colorless and 1 green. Target creature gains Death Touch until end of turn. For a hybrid green-white, target creature gains Vigilance until end of turn. Or for 2 and a white, target creature gains Double Strike until end of turn. So that was actually pretty decent. For only 3 mana, it's a 4/4, and it gives you ways to sink excess mana into combat proficiency for your creatures. That's not too bad. I could definitely see this going into a deck that doesn't necessarily want to expend a lot of extra cards from their hand, and maybe just wants to hold cards in their hand and activate abilities. Immediately, I'm thinking about werewolves, because werewolves kind of wants to control the day-night cycle, and you don't necessarily want to shift the night back into day. So with this, if you build it like Naya style, you could just dump mana into Tristani, keep it nighttime, and just swing out for a lot of damage. Especially with that double strike. Not bad. And if you do play Naya for werewolves, that does also give you access to Brutal Cathar. Moving on. Analyze the Pollen. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may collect Evidence 8. What does that mean? It means exile cards with total mana value 8 or greater from your graveyard. Okay. Okay, so you have to you have to dump cards. Doesn't matter what kind of cards they are. They can be instant sorceries, permanents, anything. So it's not like with Descend from Ixalan, where that has to be permanents. This can be any card, but has to equal a total mana value of 8. Search your library for a basic land card. If evidence was collected, instead search your library for a creature or land card. Reveal that card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Okay, so at just 1 green mana, you go get a land. If you kicked it with the evidence cost, it suddenly becomes Worldly Tutor. That's good. That's really good. I can see a lot of Commander players scooping this up. It doesn't surprise me that they have the price listed at $14.92 for a card like that. And I could definitely find some uses for that in Standard. Analyze the Pollen. Pretty good. Here we have Assassin's Trophy. This is green and black, instant. Destroy target permanent and opponent controls. Its controller may search the library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Okay, that's actually really damn good. Because that will destroy any permanent an opponent controls. It has to be permanent and opponent controls. You can't use it on yourself to go dig up land. But that's strong. Any permanent for only 2 mana. I think Golgari might be back on that menu. Aurelia the Law Above. We saw this one already. Came out a couple weeks ago. But we'll read it again just for posterity. 4/4 Flying Vigilance Haste. Whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, draw a card. Whenever a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, Aurelia the Law Above deals 3 damage to each of your opponents, and you gain 3 life. So, this is a great card simply for the fact that it says a player. It doesn't mean you, it doesn't mean your opponent, it means a player. So this is going to be fantastic for like 4-player commander pods. It's going to be great as a top end in Boros aggressive or mid-range lists, especially like the current Boros go wide list. Aurelia is going to slot in perfectly as a top end in that deck. Maybe as like a 1 or a 2 of. And the fact that she has flying and haste means that she could technically end the game on her own. She's pretty good. I like her. Next card is Axebane Ferox. So 2 and double green for a 4/4 beast with Death Touch and haste, and has Ward, collect evidence 4. That's really cool. I like that a lot. I love ward costs that are weird. Instead of just like pay a little bit of mana or pay a little bit of life, it's like ward cost, do something that would be detrimental to yourself. That's really cool. I hope we see more stuff like that. That's a 4/4 Death Touch haste for only 4 mana. It's pretty good. Okay, we got another case here. This time it's a blue case. 2 in a blue. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. To solve, you cast 4 or more instant and sorcery spells this turn. If unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. Interesting. So it says if unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. So does that mean that you just put it on the table and wait and it solves? And then it becomes solved whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. If that works the way that I think it works, that's really dumb and really, really powerful. Because it's going to allow you to turn all of your counter spells, all of your lightning bolts, all of your unsummons into draw spells. And it also gives all of your spells a cost discount. There's no way that this works the way that I'm thinking. It says, to solve, you've cast 4 or more instant and sorcery spells this turn. If unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. I'm gonna have to play with this card to find out exactly how this works, because that is absurd if it works the way that I think it does. All right, let's move on. Oh, we've got some lands here. We have Commercial District. It is a land mountain forest, and it taps for either a red or a green. It says, Commercial District enters the battlefield tapped. When Commercial District enters the battlefield, surveil 1. Okay, so these are dual lands that come into play tapped no matter what, and they allow you to surveil. And there is one for red-green, there's one for red-white, there's one for green-blue, and I imagine the others are going to be coming as well. So, decent. I don't know how good they're going to be, though. Because, like, currently, we have fast lands, slow lands, pain lands, all of which we have in almost every color combination. So I don't know if we're going to have a room for this card in our decks. It would probably have to be a deck that wants the surveil, or a deck that could very easily search up this land because of the Forest Island tag on it. We'll figure it out later. Homicide Investigator. 1 in a black, 2/2, Human Detective. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, investigate. This ability triggers only once each turn. That's okay. The Investigate is decent because it gives you tokens that you can sacrifice for other effects. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, investigate. Again, it's just kind of okay. But it is a 2/2 for 2, so it is a bear. I think you need kind of more than that. Oh well, anyway. Next is Izoni, Center of the Web. It's an elf detective. So it's a 5/4 with menace for 4 colorless, a black, and a green. Whenever Izoni, Center of the Web, enters the battlefield or attacks, you may collect evidence 4. If you do, create 2 2/1 black and green spider creature tokens with menace and reach. Sacrifice 4 tokens. Surveil 2, then draw 2 cards. You gain 2 life. Okay, that's not bad, actually. Cost is really high, though. Like, I don't know if we're going to be playing something like that at 6 mana. Well, we'll definitely play it in draft, but I don't know if we can fit this into a good standard deck. Commander might want it, though, because it's very easy to cast something like this in a commander with all the fast mana. But I don't think this is going to get played in standard. Anyways, Judith, the Carnage Connoisseur. Is a 3/4 for 3 colors, a black and a red. Is a legendary creature, human shaman. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one. That spell gains death touch and lifelink. Create a 2/2 red imp creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one. That spell gains death touch and lifelink. Interesting. So, with this, can you cast a lightning strike to kill anything? To kill like a Sheldred or like an Archfiend of the Dross, and then also gain 3 life from that. That's very interesting. And then the other part is create a 2/2 red imp creature token with when this creature dies, deals 2 damage to each opponent. The imp's okay. I think I really like that Death Touch and Lifelink. So like play that with some burn spells, or play like some draw spells or some utility spells to make imps. That's pretty cool. I like that. All right, next up we have the newest iteration of Kellen. This time he's green and blue. So, legendary creature, human fairy detective. He's a 3/4. He has an adventure. It says tail the suspect. Green and blue. Adventure. Investigate. You may play an additional land this turn. You know what? That's really good. I like that a lot. It's a little bit of ramp and it's a little bit of investigation. And you can definitely make use of that. And his creature side is 3/4 flying vigilance. Whenever Kellen, Inquisitive Prodigy, attacks, destroy up to one target artifact. If you controlled that permanent, draw a card. Okay, so he can pop our clue tokens without having to pay mana for it. That's pretty decent. This might actually be the best Kellen. This is a Kellen I would actually play. Krenko, Baron of Tin Street. It's a 3/3 for 2 colors and a red. Legendary creature goblin. It has haste. Tap, sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on each goblin you control. Now that's interesting. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay red. If you do, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. It gains haste until end of turn. Wow, so this guy can become a self-contained goblin army. You don't need to build around this. This is really good. This is actually really, really good. So you can tap it, sacrifice a clue token or whatever you have, and pay mana, putting goblins onto the table because you're sacrificing an artifact, and then put +1/+1 counters on each goblin you control, including himself because he is a goblin. I mean, this just wants to be played in Oni Cult. Oni Cult Anvil wants this really bad. Yeah, that one's pretty good. Okay, next up is Vaishino Artificer by the name of Kylox, Visionary Inventor. 5 colorless, a blue, and a red. It's a 4/4. Menace Ward 2 haste. Whenever Kylox, Visionary Inventor, attacks, sacrifice any number of other creatures. Then exile the top X cards of your library, where X is their total power. You may cast any number of instant and or sorcery spells from among the exiled cards without paying their mana costs. Okay, so while this is crazy expensive, it does pair with Case of the Ransacked Lab, because you can cast those spells for free. Hi, bud. You doing okay? Need to stretch your legs a little bit? Stretch my legs. Okay. Alright, here's more of the Surveil lands. No witnesses. What's this? So 2 colorless and 2 whites of sorcery. Each player who controls the most creatures investigates, then destroy all creatures. Okay. This is the most recent white wrath effect. Every set needs at least 1, and so this is the one we get here. This is no witnesses. Each player who controls the most creatures investigates, then destroy all creatures. Pretty good. Pretty damn good. It's basically just a different wording on depopulate. Although, in some cases, depopulate would be better in the case of playing against someone who does not have multicolor. This one, if you use it against an aggressive deck, they will always get the clue token. Raucous Theater, Shadowy Backstreet, so some more of the dual lands. Sharp-Eyed Rookie, we have a 2/2 human detective for a colorless and a green. That's vigilance. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if its power is greater than Sharp-Eyed Rookie's power, or its toughness is greater than Sharp-Eyed Rookie's toughness, put a +1/+1 counter on Sharp-Eyed Rookie and investigate. That's pretty decent. So, Sharp-Eyed Rookie will get bigger when other bigger creatures come out. So this would be pretty decent in like a mid-range deck. In like an old school Selesnya token style deck, it wouldn't be as good because the creatures would always be like 1/1s and it wouldn't be buffing the Sharp-Eyed Rookie. So this is a card that kind of wants to be in like I would imagine Selesnya +1/+1 counters deck, or maybe even a Gruul Stompy style deck. Tisa, Opulent Oligarch. First up, the art on that is just amazing. Like from the outfit that she's wearing to the specters floating around her, really, really great art. So this is a 2/3 with Death Touch for a colorless, a white, and a black. It says at the beginning of your end step, investigate for each opponent who lost life this turn. Pretty good. Whenever a clue you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. This ability triggers one once each turn. Okay, so whenever you use one of your clue tokens for any reason, you make spirits, and it's a 2/3 with Death Touch on its own. This wants to be played in an Aristocrats style shell. Pretty decent, yeah. It's a build around card. Thundering Falls. Tolsimir, Midnight's Light. It's an elf scout for 2 colorless, a green, and 2 white. It's a 3/2 with lifelink. It says when Tolsimir, Midnight's Light enters the battlefield, create Voya Fenstalker, a legendary 5/5 green and white wolf creature token with trample. So when it enters the battlefield, you get this 3/2 with lifelink and also a 5/5 trampling wolf. That's really good for only 5 mana. Whenever a wolf you control attacks, if Tolsimir attacked this combat, target creature and opponent controls blocks that wolf this combat table. Okay, so this is a creature that comes into play. It creates a creature, and it wants to attack with that creature. This is like a bonded pair kind of situation. That's really cool. All right, 2 more of the lands. So it looks like we get these Surveil lands in every color combination. War Leader's Call for 1 red white is an enchantment. It says creatures you control get +1/+1. Okay, so it's an anthem. And it says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, War Leader's Call deals 1 damage to each opponent. Okay, this is stupid good with Boros Go Wide, because like whenever you start creating tokens off of Resplendent Cathar or off of the new Boros creature that makes tokens on attacking, that's really, really strong. I like that a lot. Wojek Investigator, 2 and a white, 2/4 Flying Vigilance, Angel Detective. So it's another detective with only 2 power. So keep that in mind. At the beginning of your upkeep, investigate once for each opponent who has more cards on hand than you. So this is a really good card for keeping like hand size parity with your opponent. So you play this in like an aggressive or even mid-range deck that just commits to the board early, and you just use the effect on Wojek Investigator to create clue tokens that you can then either sacrifice for any other reason or sacrifice to just draw cards and catch up on hand parity. It's pretty decent, and especially for only 3 mana, it being a 2/4 Flying Vigilance, really strong. I mean, honestly, I would pay 3 mana just for a 2/4 Flying Vigilance. Okay, next up we have a Killer Among Us. So for 4 colorless and a green, it's an enchantment. And it says, when a killer among us enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human creature token, a 1/1 blue merfolk creature token, and a 1/1 red goblin creature token. Then secretly choose human, merfolk, or goblin. Sacrifice a killer among us. Reveal the chosen creature type. If target attacking creature token is the chosen type, put 3+1/+1 counters on it, and against death touch until end of turn. Okay, that's really funny. Okay, so it's pretty expensive, but it does give you 3 creatures. And you believe you choose the type when you cast it, right? Yes, you choose the type when you cast the card. And then you sacrifice the enchantment, probably like when you're attacking, or maybe when you need to block. You sacrifice the enchantment to buff the one creature that you wanted to be really good. And then the others stay 1/1s, which you then can then use for whatever else you need to use it for. If you need to sacrifice it for benefit, or just have extra tokens on the table. 5 mana, there's a lot to pay for that effect though. I don't know if I want to play this or not. Branch of Vitu-Ghazi. It's a land, and it taps for colorless. Disguise 3. You may cast this card face down for 3 as a 2/2 creature with Ward 2. Turn it face up anytime for its disguise cost. So this is a land that can be played as a creature. This is a whole new twist on the manland. When Branch of Vitu-Ghazi is turned face up, add 2 mana of any one color. Until on a turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. So that's a pretty cool effect. So you play it as a face down creature, and then whenever you need to, you turn it face up. And turning it face up costs you 3, but you get 2 mana back of any color. And if it's untapped, you can also still just tap it for the colorless. So effectively, you don't lose out on any mana. This effectively becomes a color fixing tool. That's pretty cool. I like it. That's very interesting. Burden of Proof. 1 colorless, 1 blue. Enchantment aura. Flash. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 as long as it's a detective you control. Otherwise, it has base power toughness 1/1 and can't block detectives. Okay, that's pretty cool. So it's literally just a creature buff, or it's, what was the card? Witness Protection from New Capenna. It's really good. This is straight up, this is removal, and it has flash. You can cast it anytime. That's just amazing. That's a really good card. Okay, moving on. We have Case of the Filched Falcon. So 1 blue mana. When this case enters the battlefield, investigate. To solve, you control 3 or more artifacts. Well, that's easy enough. If unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. Get rid of that. Solved, 2 blue, sacrifice this case. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on target non-creature artifact. It becomes a 0/0 bird creature with flying in addition to its other types. So it becomes a, so you can, it basically allows you to animate an artifact, and it becomes a 4/4 flying version of the artifact. So animate a clue token or something like that. All right, Case of the Gorgon's Kiss. It's a 1 black mana case. It says, when this case enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target creature that was dealt damage this turn. To solve, 3 or more creature cards were put into graveyards from anywhere this turn. So that's totally fine. So this can actually play into the Descend mechanic from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. So from anywhere means milled, discarded, removed from the graveyard, anything like that for any reason. So basically you play this, and then you play like any mill 4 effect. Boom. And then solved, this case is a 4/4 Gorgon creature with Death Touch and lifelink in addition to its other types. That's pretty decent. So it's a 1 black mana, 4/4 Death Touch and lifelink creature. Not bad. You just gotta jump through a couple hoops to get there. Case of the Pilfered Proof. This is 1 and a white. Whenever a detective enters the battlefield under your control, and whenever a detective you control is turned face up, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay, that's pretty good right there. To solve, you control 3 or more detectives. Okay, we're seeing a theme here. Solved. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a clue token are created instead. Interesting. So, tokens of any kind, right? Yeah, tokens of any kind. You just make more of them. Convenient target. 1 red mana. Enchantment aura. Enchant creature. When convenient target enters the battlefield, suspect enchanted creature. Okay. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. Okay, so you put it on your own creature to give it +1/+1 and give it menace. 2 and a red. Return convenient target from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, that's actually pretty decent. So you could just use that as a buff spell. I don't think you would run that over Monstrous Roll though, or Monstrous Rage. I think the card was. Yeah, I think that's just a little bit better, especially because it's instant speed. Crime Novelist. What's this? Crime Novelist, 2 and a red. It's a Goblin Bard. 1/3. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and add red. Oh, that's really good. That's really good. Especially when you play this in like an Oni Cult Anvil deck. That could be really, really good. I like that a lot. Okay, next. Curious Cadaver. Okay, we have zombie detectives now. 2 colors, a blue and black for a 3/1 flying zombie. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, return Curious Cadaver from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, that's silly. It's a draft card, honestly. Like too expensive for a standard, but pretty decent for draft, especially because that's flying, and it's recurable for a pretty easy cost. All right, what's up, bud? You going outside? Yeah, go for it.
Buddy.
You're fine. Okay. Deadly Complication. 1 colorless, 1 black, 1 red. Sorcery. Choose 1 or both. Destroy target creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on target suspected creature you control. You may have it become no longer suspected. Okay, so you can choose to make it not suspected, but if you're playing aggressively, you probably want to keep it suspected so that it still has menace. And you can give the +1/+1 counter regardless. And also it's destroy target creature. 3 mana though, at sorcerer speed though, that makes it a little sus, I guess. Because there are better kill cards at only 2 mana, and a lot of them. I would probably play this in specifically a suspect aggro deck, so that you can eliminate potential blockers and still be able to swing in for lethal. So like, say for example, your opponent has exactly 2 creatures, your creature has menace, and you don't want that creature blocked this turn. So you eliminate one of the 2 creatures and swing in for an easy kill. Yeah. it definitely has its situations. Expose the culprit. 1 colorless, 1 red. Instant. Choose one or both. Turn target face down creature face up. Okay. Exile any number of face up creatures you control with disguise in a face down pile. Shuffle that pile, then cloak them. Ooh, that's fun. I like that. That's a cool effect. Exile any number of face up creatures you control with disguise in a face down pile. Shuffle that pile, then cloak them. That's hilarious. That's a great way to reuse your disguise effects. That's good. I like that. Gleaming Gear Drake. So we've seen this one already, but we'll talk about it anyways. It's a 1/1 for a red and a blue. Artifact creature Drake. Flying. When Gleaming Gear Drake enters the battlefield, investigate. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Gleaming Gear Drake. Okay. So it's something that wants to be in a deck with a lot of clue tokens, a lot of treasure tokens, and you just use the tokens for their intended costs and abilities, and this just gets bigger as an effect. This would probably go really well in the current red-blue Pirates build, because that deck generates a lot of token artifacts just incidentally. So this would actually work for that deck. Next up we have It Doesn't Add Up. 3 colorless, double black. Instant. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Suspect. Okay, hold up. This is a Reanimator card at instant speed. We did see something similar to this in Streets of New Capenna. There was a card called Graveyard Shift, and it was a sorcery. It was 5 mana, and it would reanimate from your graveyard. But you could cast it as though it had flash if you had cards in your graveyard that had like 5 different casting costs. This doesn't have that. This just straight up allows you to reanimate something from your graveyard. Any creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then you suspect it. So effectively that's just better. You don't have to have the caveat. You get any creature back from your graveyard, and you give it menace. I mean, that's stupid. It's amazing. I love it. Good stuff. I like that. Next up, we have Knife. Just a simple knife for 1 red mana, artifact clue equipment. And as long as it's your turn, equipped creature gets +1/+0. Sorry about that. As long as your turn, equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has first strike. Okay, that's cool. 2, sacrifice knife, draw a card, and equip cost is 2. Okay, so honestly not bad. Like for like just like a combat, not really combat trick because it's not instant speed, but combat effectiveness. Paying effectively 3 mana to give a creature +1/+0 and first strike could be a game changer for draft, and just being able to sacrifice to draw a card is pretty cool too. Crawl Whipcracker. So for a green and a black, it is an insect assassin for 3/2. It has reach. When Crawl Whipcracker enters the battlefield, destroy target token an opponent controls. Okay, so you bust up someone's tokens. So that could be artifact tokens. It could also be creature tokens, but it just has to be a token. And for 3/2 reach for only 2 mana, this is pretty decent. It's pretty decent indeed. I like it. Yeah, especially when playing against like all those white decks that play like just a ton of token creatures. Really good. Okay, next up we have the Lead Pipe for 1 black mana. It is another clue equipment. I like the clue references. Whenever an equipped creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Okay, so pretty good. And 2, sacrifice Lead Pipe, draw a card, equip 2. Lightning Helix. This is the card I'm probably most excited for. Red and white, Lightning Helix deals 3 damage to any target, you gain 3 life. I believe this is the first time this has been reprinted into standard since its original printing, which I'm pretty excited for, because I actually still have my playset of the original Lightning Helixes in a deck. So I'm pretty happy this is coming back. Long Goodbye. 1 and a black, instant. This spell can't be countered. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. Coming in?
Hi, sorry.
You're okay, bud. Okay. Yeah. So, can't be countered. It's a smother for creatures or planeswalkers. Pretty decent. I could see this being like a 1 or a 2 of in your deck, or maybe a sideboard card against very specific deaths. All right. Next up, we have the Meddling Youths. 3 colorless, red white for a 4/5 haste human detective. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, investigate. It's all right. It's a draft card. Night Drinker Morai is a 4/2 vampire for 3 colorless and a black. Flying. Whenever Night Drinker Morai enters the battlefield, you lose 3 life. Oh, but it has disguise, so you can. So, if you morph it, it's not bad. If you don't morph it, it's straight up bad. Ooh, what's this? No More Lies. For a white and a blue, it is an instant, and it says counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. Wow. That's Mana Leak. That's Mana Leak with upside. Granted, it's not a colorless and a blue, it's a white and a blue, which means you have to build it that way. But that's a damn good counter spell, and I'm going to be jamming that a lot. People are going to hate me for it, but I'm going to be playing it. It's a good card. It's a damn good card. Ooh, only 2 mana. Mana Leak. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Okay.
Just make.
Well, I probably.
Thank you.
You're welcome, buddy. I probably won't be up too much longer. I'm getting through this list pretty quickly. I know, buddy. Oh no! That explains the quietness. Okay, next up we have Not on My Watch. 1 colorless, 1 white. Instant, exile target attacking creature. Plain and simple. Nice and easy. Hi, River. Doing good? Come here. Girl. Good girl. You get locked in the room and no one knew about it because you're being quiet. Yeah. Exile target attacking creature. Pretty decent. Has to be attacking though. It can't be blocking. So, I'm sure a card like that will have its spots. Alright, moving on. Scene of the Crime. Ooh, this is an artifact land, and it's also a clue. Scene of the Crime enters the battlefield tapped. Tap, add colorless. Tap, tap an untapped creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. 2, sacrifice Scene of the Crime, draw a card. That's actually fairly decent. The only thing that makes it bad is it comes into play tapped. If it came into play untapped, that would very likely be an include in a lot of decks. Alright, what else we got here? Sumala Sentry. For a white and a green, Elf Archer. So 1/3 with reach. Whenever a face-down permanent you control is turned face up, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And a +1/+1 counter on Sumala Sentry. Okay, so this is a build around with the morph creatures. It's pretty good. It's a I don't know if you'd call it a role player. It's more of a supporting cast card for that deck. Alright. Airtight Alibi. 2 colorless and a green. Enchantment, Aura, Flash. Enchant creature. When Airtight Alibi enters the battlefield, untap enchanted creature. It gains hexproof until end of turn. If it's suspected, it's no longer suspected. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and can't become suspected. That's pretty cool. I like that. And it's thematic. It's mechanical. It's good, especially because it's flash. Enters the battlefield. Untap the creature. It gains hexproof. It loses suspected and gets +2/+2 and protection from suspected. It's pretty good. The only thing that I don't like about it is the casting cost. Like, if your goal is just to protect your creature, you're probably still going to use something like Tamiya's Safekeeping, or God, what was the one? It was the Tyvar's Stand, I think it was. Yeah, you're probably going to go with those. But if you're looking to clear suspect and get a +2/+2 bonus for your efforts, it's not a bad idea. Auspicious Arrival. 1 colorless and a white. Instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and investigate. Okay, that's a kind of like a cantrip. Benthic Criminologists. Creature, Merfolk Wizard. 4 colorless and a blue for a 4/5. Whenever Benthic Criminologist enters the battlefield or attacks, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, draw a card. Meh. Bite down on crime. Okay. Three colors and a green. Sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect evidence 6. The spell costs 2 less to cast if evidence was collected. Okay. So you kick it to make this cost 2. Target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Okay, so it's a striking effect. It's not bad. Crime Stopper Spray. So we got ourselves another fairy. I like that we're getting more fairies with each set. It's pretty nice. Crime Stopper Spray. 2 colorless and a blue. It's a 2/2 fairy detective. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect evidence 6. Flying. When Crime Stopper Spray enters the battlefield, tap target creature. If evidence was collected, put a stun counter on it. Draft card. Deduce. 1 colorless, 1 blue. Instant. Draw a card and investigate. It's alright. Defenestrated Phantom. 4 colorless and 2 white. 4/3 flying. Disguise 4 colorless and a white. Okay, and it's another draft card. So it's got a morph combat trick on it. Demand Answers. 1 colorless, 1 red. Instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or discard a card. Draw 2 cards. That's really good. Okay, so we're seeing a theme here of, in red specifically, sacrificing like your clue tokens or artifact tokens in general for added effect. You can use this in that style of a deck. Sacrifice your clue token to buff up your goblin or what have you, and then just draw 2 cards. This is good. It's really like, of the like red draw spells that we've been getting lately, this is probably one of the better ones. Dogwalker is a human citizen for a red and a red and a white. Human citizen, 3/1. Vigilance. Disguise. The disguise cost is 2 hybrid mana in red or white. When Dogwalker is turned face up, create 2 tapped 1/1 white dog creature tokens. Hey, that's pretty good. That's really good, actually. For only 2 mana? Hell yeah. Alright. Extract a Confession. 1 colorless, 1 black. Sorcery. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may collect evidence 6. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. If evidence was collected, instead, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. Okay, that's pretty decent. Yeah, and it's just It's a kicker edict effect. For 2 mana, I think we're not playing this. I think we're still just playing Sheoldred's Edict. It's just a better card. Fanatical Strength. 1 colorless, 1 green. Instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 and trample until end of turn. Combat trick. We've seen it before. Felonious Rage. I like that. I like that art too. That's really cool. 1 red mana. Instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. When that creature dies this turn, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. That's pretty cool. That's actually really cool. I like that. That's a cool effect. I don't think I've seen anything quite like that. Gadget Technician. 2 colorless blue-red for a 3/2 Goblin Artificer. When Gadget Technician enters the battlefield, or is turned face up, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. And it's got a disguise cost of 2 red-blue hybrid mana. Not bad. Galvanize. 1 colorless, 1 red. Instant. Galvanize deals 3 damage to target creature. If you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, Galvanize deals 5 to that creature instead. Oh, I like that. 3 damage or 5 damage if you've drawn 2 cards. And what does that pair perfectly with? Demand Answers. Not bad. You will very likely be playing this in your main phase in most situations, because it says if you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn. So you draw 1 during your draw step. That's 1 already. So all you gotta do is draw 1 more. Hotshot Investigators. 5 colorless and a blue. Already that has me worried. 4/4 Vedalken Detective. When Hotshot Investigators enters the battlefield, return up to 1 other target creature to its owner's hand. If you controlled it, investigate. It's a draft card. It's way too expensive. Loxodon Eavesdropper. I like that. 3 colorless and a green. 3/3 Elephant Detective. When Loxodon Eavesdropper enters the battlefield, investigate. When you draw your second card each turn, Loxodon Eavesdropper gets +1/+1 and gains Vigilance until end of turn. And the flavor text says, he's all ears. I like that. Alright, that's not too bad. More draft stuff. Magnifying Glass. 3 colorless artifact. Taps for a colorless. Or pay 4 and tap to investigate. So this will just generate investigation tokens for you. And it's not that great though. It's pretty expensive for its effect. And the fact that it is a mana rock that costs 3 and only generates colorless, pretty bad. Market Watch Phantom. 1 colorless, 1 white for a Spirit Detective. It is a 2/2. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, Market Watch Phantom gains flying until end of turn. Not bad. It's cute. Novice Inspector is a 1/2 for 1 white mana. When Novice Inspector enters the battlefield, investigate. Oh, it's Thraben Inspector, just slightly better because it's a 1/2. Or was the original 1/2 also? I don't remember. Out Cold. 3 colorless and a blue. This spell can't be countered. Tap up to 2 target creatures, put a stun counter on each of them, and then investigate. That's not bad. I don't really know why they put this spell can't be countered on an effect like this, though. Seems odd to me. Public Thoroughfare. Land. Public Thoroughfare enters the battlefield tapped. When Public Thoroughfare enters the battlefield, sacrifice it, unless you tap an untapped artifact or land you control. So you can tap one of your clue tokens to pay for that cost. And it taps for 1 mana of any color. This card's trash. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just not good. Yes, you get mana of any color, which is fantastic. And it would be great in a setting where we didn't already have access to really, really good mana. So, unless you're playing like a 5-color good stuff deck, I don't see this being played. Because one, it comes into play tapped no matter what, and in order to keep it on the board, you have to tap another land or an artifact to play it. I mean, it just sets you back so far just for color fixing. I'm like, I could see if this would tap for 2 mana of any color. That seems a little bit more reasonable for me, but I don't think I would play that card. Sanitation Automaton. 2 colors. Construct. Whenever Sanitation Automaton enters the battlefield, surveil 1. It's a 2/1. Alright, cool. Shock. We all know what Shock does. It's a good card. Topiary Panther. 4 colors, 2 green. It is a 6/5 trample with basic land cycling. That's pretty cool. V2 Ghazi Inspector. 1 colorless, 1 green. It is a 1/3 creature, elf, detective. It has reach. And it says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may collect evidence 6. When V2 Ghazi Inspector enters the battlefield, if evidence was collected, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, or target creature, and you gain 2 life. Okay, so again, more draft chaff. And it looks like we might be getting to the end here because we're starting to see the full art lands. So we got the forest here, very beautiful. Then the regular forest. It's the full art island, very nice. So we're getting all these really cool cityscapes. I like it a lot. There's the mountain, there's the plains, and the swamp. Very nice. And then, of course, we have our showcase cards, all in the very cool and very thematic dossiers. I like that a lot. The dossiers look really cool. And I also like that the dossiers come with alternate art for each of the characters, rather than just taking the existing art and putting a different frame on it. We have some extended arts. That Assassin's Trophy looks nice. I will be playing a lot of Assassin's Trophy. That Kellen looks a little odd. Artistic choice, I guess. There's all the lands. Pre-release promos, which is Voya, Tomik, and Melek. Miscellaneous promos. Ooh, that No More Lies looks very nice. I'm so excited for that card. That's probably the most exciting card to me, is No More Lies. Just because it's a roundabout Mana Leak. And Mana Leak is such a good card. Special guests, huh? Oh, these must be cards from like the list. Ooh, Show and Tell. Ghostly Prison. Victimize. Okay, yeah, so these are going to be the cards that are just reprints for Commander. Not necessarily things that we need to be worrying ourselves with. Unless, of course, we are playing Commander, which I am slowly starting to get into. Okay, all right, so that is our full spoiler lists as of right now. And to ask me, the cards that I am most excited for are the new Mana Leak, No More Lies. No More Lies is really, really cool. What else do we have that caught my eye? No More Lies, really good. Lightning Helix, really good. Let's see what else. Deadly Complication is a very interesting card. You'll notice that all the cards I'm pointing out are removal. Let's see. Warleader's Call is actually really cool. I like that it's an anthem that just beats your opponent up. That's a really cool anthem. Let's see. Judith is really interesting too. I like that effect. I like Aurelia. Aurelia is cool too. I like Rakdos. I like Massacre Girl. Those are all really cool cards. I like the Kaya, but not as much as like the big 7-mana Kaya. I think that one's better, honestly. Assemble the Players is an interesting card. Intrude on the Mind is really cool. I like that. Private Eye is kind of fun. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's all of the new cards as of right now. So as more cards get released, we will have a better idea of just how good this set is going to be. And it looks like we already have some dollar values assigned to some of the cards. And a lot of them are pretty high. We'll see though. Anyways, so that is it. It is getting late, so I am going to end the stream right here. I thank you very much for popping in and spending this time with me. So, I guess there's nothing left to say except until next time, you take care of yourselves.